Witness life, 7.4 million years ago. Encounters with giant predators and collective defense strategies. The warm breeze sweeps across the ancient savannas, carrying with it the scent of dry plants and the distant roar of colossal beasts. We are 7.4 million years ago, in a wild, brutal, and unpredictable Earth. Here, every heartbeat of the primitive human echoes as a reminder of the fragility of existence in a world filled with gigantic predators. There were no walls, no weapons forged in metal, no safety of modern cities, only flesh, fragile bones, and the rising intelligence of ancestors who were beginning to understand that survival was not a solitary journey, but a collective one. Awakening in the ancient savannah. The sun rises slowly, painting the horizon with shades of gold and red. Small groups of hominids, bipedal creatures still distant from modern humans, awaken among twisted trees and tall grasses. Their bodies were smaller than ours, their faces more elongated, but their eyes already carried the spark of caution and curiosity. These ancestors, perhaps species close to Sahelanthropus chidensis, lived in small bands. The previous night had been restless, with the deep roars of great felines echoing in the distance. Now, the new day brought a challenge: to find food without becoming food. Instinct guided them. Every step across the dry ground was followed by watchful eyes. Danger lurked in every shadow. The reign of giant predators. At that time, the landscape was ruled by creatures that now seem born of nightmares. Primitive lions, giant hyenas, and saber-toothed cats roamed the savannah in search of vulnerable prey. But it wasn't only felines that posed a threat. Colossal crocodiles hid along riverbanks, ready to drag any careless creature to an aquatic death. And there were also the giant predatory birds, such as the kelenkin, descendant of the terror birds, capable of bringing down prey with devastating blows from their sharp beaks. For our fragile ancestors, confronting these creatures head-on was impossible. They had no claws, no sharp fangs. They weren't as fast as antelopes, nor as strong as primitive rhinos. Their greatest weapon lay in their minds and in the collective. The first encounter. Imagine a small group of 5 or 6 hominids moving through the savannah in search of roots, seeds, and fruits. The sun was already high when the sound of snapping branches echoed in the distance. Eyes turned. Among the vegetation, a massive shadow moved. A meganterian, an agile saber-toothed cat with long, razor-sharp fangs like ivory blades. The predator approached slowly, with silent steps. The band noticed the threat. The instinct to flee surged within them, but running in panic would mean scattering, becoming easy prey. Instead, they clustered together, forming an instinctive circle, keeping the young in the center. With stones in their hands and guttural cries, the hominids displayed something new: collective defense. The meganterion hesitated. It was used to hunting creatures that ran without resistance. But now, before it, was a noisy unit, waving arms, throwing stones and sticks. The risk might not be worth it. After minutes of tension, the feline slowly retreated, disappearing back into the vegetation. For the first time, unity had proven more lethal than any claw. Intelligence in evolution. That encounter was not just survival by instinct. It was a milestone. The lesson was etched into the group's memory. In a world where death prowled at every step, cooperation became the key to staying alive. Over time, these bands began refining their strategies. They chose higher ground to rest, where they could watch better. They kept improvised shifts of alertness, observing sounds and nocturnal movements. They discovered that fire, not yet mastered, but known when lightning brought it, repelled predators. Intelligence was not just in fleeing or in strength, but in organization. The threat of giant crocodiles. It wasn't only felines that brought fear. The search for water was a dangerous routine. Along the edges of rivers and lakes, colossi lurked. Giant crocodiles, some measuring over 7 meters. Their thick skin was natural armor, and their jaws, deadly traps. When the group approached the water, they never did so recklessly. The strongest advanced first, banging stones together, making noises that might reveal an ambush. Some threw sticks into the water to see if something moved. There were losses. A young one was dragged away once, before the eyes of the band. But there were also lessons. Danger was a teacher, and each generation passed on survival tricks to the next. The terror birds. Another enemy came not from the rivers, but from the ground, in swift, deadly charges. The kelenken, a predatory bird more than 2.5 meters tall, could not fly but hunted with beak strikes strong enough to crush bone. Its keen vision turned any carelessness into a death sentence. Against them, the hominids developed another tactic: defensive grouping with sticks and stones. At the sight of such a bird, they did not flee in scattered lines. They stayed close, hurling objects and screaming, confusing the bird and making the attack too risky. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The weak survived only when united. The importance of cooperation. Their predators were stronger, faster, and deadlier, but none of them had the ability to create complex alliances. This emerging skill would shape the future of the species. While felines hunted alone or in pairs, while birds attacked individually, hominids learned to act as one body. This unity not only drove enemies away, but also allowed them to share food, care for the injured, and protect the young. Survival was no longer just biological, it was social. A world in constant danger. Life 7.4 million years ago was a daily trial. Nights were marked by roars, cries, and the cracking of bones in the dark. Days demanded courage and constant vigilance. With every encounter with giant predators, a new lesson was learned. And with every generation, the bands became better adapted to survival. They were still fragile, still vulnerable, but now they possessed something that would forever change history: the power of collectivity. The legacy. What began as simple instinctive defense against a saber-toothed cat evolved, over thousands of years, into hunting strategies, tribal organization, and eventually, complex societies. Those first collective defenses were the foundations of what would later become villages, cities, and civilizations. Every stone thrown, every cry of alarm, every protective circle around the young was a step in humanity's journey. Humans did not conquer nature by strength or speed. They triumphed because they learned to stand together. The triumph of unity. By witnessing life 7.4 million years ago, we realized that our ancestors lived in a delicate balance between fear and resilience. Surrounded by giant predators, they could have vanished, as so many other species did. But they did not. They endured. Not with fangs, not with claws, but with something invisible and powerful: cooperation. This was humanity's first step toward dominion over Earth. And it all began there, in the relentless savannah, when small, fragile groups dared to face colossal monsters through unity. The message still echoes today. Alone, we are prey. Together, we are survivors.